Hi everyone, welcome back to my channel and thank you for joining me. My name is Mark and this is my Daddy Diary episode 21. I will put a caveat at the beginning of this episode that it may be a slightly longer one because I'm going to be talking about the parental order process, specifically the moment when a CAFCAS officer will come and do an assessment so they can put together a report for the courts. Obviously that's going to take up a big chunk, so I'm just going to get right on with it. Obviously I'll give a basic overview of a parental order. So for those of you that don't know, in surrogacy, when you have a baby through a surrogate, when they are born, the birth mother and her husband, if she is married, will be put onto the birth certificate. That is the legal requirement, that's how it works, and I've mentioned it in previous episodes. At that point, it means that the birth mother and her husband have the legal parental responsibility for that baby. So although they're going to be going home with you, legally they have responsibility for the child. And basically what a parental order will do is remove the parental responsibility from them and give it to you, the actual parents who are raising the baby. Us. So you can do this from 6 weeks onwards, and I recommend you get straight in there and get on with it at 6 weeks for both for you and for your surrogate, because I think for a surrogate it's a very unusual situation that they've got legal responsibility for a child that they're not even raising. So you want to kind of deal with that and take that burden off them as soon as possible. You do this from 6 weeks. You have to have started the process before the baby turns 6 months as well. So it's worth, like I say, it's just worth getting on with it, get it done nice and quickly. You do it by filling out it's a form C51, which I'll provide links to all the forms and the legal recommendations and all of that stuff down below in the description. But it's C51, and when you file it, it will cost you £215 if you are in England or Wales. Scotland, it's a different fee, and I can't remember what it is, but it is slightly different in Scotland. So you'd need to check on that if you are up in Scotland. Once you file that, they will get back in touch with you when they've acknowledged it. They'll send you the relevant paperwork over and they will give you a court date. Now, from experience, talking to other surrogates, it can go one of two ways, because we were expecting to have to go to court when they assigned a CAFCAS officer, or go to court to have a CAFCAS officer assigned to us. That isn't what happened for us, and I know it has happened for others. We just literally got paperwork through with the court order to say when the court date was, and that CAFCAS had been ordered to do an assessment and submit a report. So we didn't have to go already, and literally we're just going to court the one time once the report has been done. We were assigned the CAFCAS officer and they were also in touch. They'll need you to fill out some paperwork just to give them permission to check your police records and the baby's health records, which obviously you're going to do because you should have already done all of that when you were in the surrogacy process. So that shouldn't be a problem. You're just basically giving them permission to do the checks that they need to do to make sure everything's okay. And then the next bit, which is what happened this week, the CAFCAS officer, or the parental order reporter is what it will be noted as in your documentation, will arrange to come and see you. Now again, after talking to other surrogates, that's not always the case. Some parental order reporters will require you to submit a written statement, but they won't come out to see you. Again, I only know this from talking to other surrogates and IPs in the surrogacy groups. For us, she arranged to come to our home. She wanted to have a chat with us, see the environment and see Sophie for herself. So that is the bulk of what I'm going to be talking about this week. It was more that we had the parental order reporter come round and she did her assessment, ready to submit her report to the courts, ready for our court date at the end of the month. If I had any hints and tips for people about to go through the parental order process, I would say just be prepared to have personal questions asked. I would say that was definitely a theme throughout our session, and also be prepared for it to take a little bit of time. Our parental order reporter was with us for about an hour and 45 minutes, chatting through all the various bits and pieces. So when she got here, obviously everything was very happy, everything was very good, and when we got down to it, she basically went right back to the beginning of mine and my husband's relationship. So how we first met, what were the circumstances, blah blah, how did we start dating, where did we go on our first date? Which was, like I say, very personal questions about your history there. Moving on to sort of when we decided that we were going to look at having children, what made us decide on the surrogacy process rather than something else. Then she moved on towards how our families felt when we first told them about the fact that we were going to have a child. Did we have any issues there? Obviously she asked a bit more about how we actually started the process within surrogacy. So for us, obviously, we spoke a lot about the surrogacy groups on Facebook and the fact that we were lucky enough to know someone who knew someone who was there really just to answer all of our questions, and it turned into something way more amazing, this little one. And then obviously, whilst talking about that part of the sort of the surrogacy process, there were a lot of questions about our relationship with the surrogate and her family, which obviously, as you know from following us, we have a fantastic relationship with Lisa and with her husband and with her children. So actually it was really lovely to be able to tell them all about that. There were questions about exactly how we got Lisa pregnant, I guess, if you want to put it that way. The kind of the specifics, which I think was a little bit of an uncomfortable subject perhaps for my husband, because he found that all very awkward anyway. Obviously, you would do, you know. It's kind of a little bit weird impregnating another lady, but you have to get over it. Yeah. Oh, your timing is classic, my lovely. Oh. We also had a chat about the expenses, how we paid Lisa, how much we paid Lisa, and what that was all for. Luckily, we'd kept a breakdown all the way through, apart from one date that I'd left off. We kept a breakdown all the way through of what we were giving Lisa and what that was for, because obviously one of the key things that they are going to be looking for is to make sure that you have given or you have covered reasonable expenses, but that you haven't paid so much that you're essentially just buying a baby, and that the surrogate hasn't taken advantage. That basically they're checking to make sure that that sum of money has been reasonable, has been for expenses, and has in no way benefited the surrogate, because that is illegal in the UK. She asked quite a lot of questions about the birth date, or the date of birth, what that was like, did we make it? So obviously in our situation, we didn't quite make it down there. How did that make us feel? We told her about having to stay overnight and what that was like. Then we moved on to what life is like now that we have Sophie. So all of our sort of favourite things that now that we're parents, and some of the things that perhaps are a little bit more challenging. She also asked quite a lot about the sort of the support network that we have around us, you know, where our families live, on both sides, and how involved they are. So it was quite personal, especially when talking about, you know, your family and friends and who was helping and who was being around. Then we got on to the conversation about her health and what we were doing with her, whether we were going to baby sensory classes or any other classes and all that kind of stuff. So it was a very, very in-depth conversation. Obviously, I think the key thing to remember throughout the whole thing is that they are trying to build up a picture of you, a character profile, if you will, of you as a parent. So they need to learn as much about you and get a real feel for you, your life, your history, and obviously your future as a parent from the questions that they ask. So I think that's why it's such a broad spectrum of questioning. Some people might not think it's relevant to discuss how they met their partner in terms of 12 years down the line and you're now parents. You know, where you met and where you are now could be two different things. But again, it's because they are trying to build up that picture of you as a couple, as individuals, as parents, so that when they submit the report, they are painting an accurate picture of you. They will also be in touch with your surrogate and potentially your surrogate's partner or husband if they feel it's necessary. So you'll notice that Sophie is now gone, miraculously. I just cut it just then because she had a little bit of a cry. She'd had enough. So she's now sitting out with Nanny and I will carry on. So I think I've pretty much covered everything in the parental order. I guess, like I say, the most important thing to remember is that they are trying to build up a profile of you, so that when you go to the courts, they can present the assessment and make it go through as seamlessly as possible. Then shortly after we had the parental order reporter, and this is a quick shout out really, more than anything, we took Sophie down to Dada Mark's work, down to his office, so that they could finally meet Sophie. I think they'd been looking forward to it for quite some time, so I just wanted to do a big shout out to those of Dada Mark's colleagues that obviously have been following and watching the videos, and I just wanted to say hi and thank you for watching. And I think Sophie really enjoyed coming to see you all. On the Wednesday, we had her first baby sensory class, which was very interesting. It did kind of mess up the routine a little bit that day, just because of what time she got up in the morning and what time she was fed and so on and so on and so on. She slept all the way there in the buggy. I say sleep, I'm not sure, I don't think she was entirely asleep. She was just shutting her eyes because it was bright. And so she was a little bit out of sorts throughout the session. She didn't cry too much, although there were a few moments where she clearly was a bit out of sorts. But the instructor, who is a lovely lady, did explain that babies in their first few sessions of baby sensory, because it is all new and you are kind of awakening all different new experiences for them, that it can be a little bit much or a little bit overwhelming, or that they might get a little bit upset. So I'm just putting it down to that at the moment, and we'll see how it goes next week. The theme for the week was actually a journey into space, which I already know Sophie's not that keen on things being too dark, and there was moments obviously where the lights were out and there were just a few flashing lights. That was the moments where she seemed to get a little bit tetchy, and I think on top of the fact that she's probably out of routine, so it was just something completely different for her, and I think it threw her for a loop a little bit. But overall, it seemed to go okay. I'd be honest, I did feel a little bit odd being the only dad there. Obviously, I get that for the majority of people, it's going to be mums that do things like baby sensory classes and things like that, because they're the ones that stay at home. No judgments or anything like that. I'm just saying that tends to be how it works. So I did feel a little bit uncomfortable to begin with, but then in my mind I'm just like, well, I'm not here for me. It's not about me. This is about Sophie and having that sensory experience. So I kind of just put it to the back of my mind and just got on with it. Yeah, it was fun. I definitely learned a few things as well that I can bring home and do on a more daily basis, which was really nice. Great. Some really great exercises to help get her senses buzzing away and obviously developing the way they should. Like I say, it did seem to break Sophie's routine a little bit, and so it made the rest of the day a little bit awkward. She was very upset. By the time we got home, I think she was just tired but couldn't sleep, and it had just kind of thrown everything out a little bit, which really bothered her, which then obviously upsets me because I don't want her to be upset and I want to make everything okay. So it was quite a tiring day. I remember on the Wednesday being very exhausted by the end of the day. So we'll see, obviously, and we're going to carry on going. We've paid for the whole term, so I'm not going to not go. and we'll see how that progresses over the weeks, and obviously I will keep coming back to you. Now, I think this video is probably just about long enough. The rest of the week was pretty low key, I guess. We didn't really do much else. So I'm going to wrap it up there. Say thank you for stopping by and watching. Of course, if you do have any questions about parental orders and that process, or anything you think I might have missed in talking about it in the video, pop it down in the comments below and I will get back to you, of course. And I will, of course, put in the links so that you can go and have a look at that as well. So thank you for watching, and I will see you next week. Bye!